this is Bill Knauer for Author Magazine, and this month I spoke with rising literary sensation Brit Bennett about her early success, about discovering she had something to say even at a very young age, and about the importance of patience and forgiveness. Enjoy. All right, well, Brit, welcome. Welcome. You're on the West Coast, as am I. Let's begin by, how's it going? How is life for you wherever you are? Are you in Northern California, Southern California? Where are you?
I'm in San Diego.
Okay. Oh, okay. Have you guys been hit pretty hard? How is it?
I came from New York, so I'm like my dad has an office outside. That's why like a weird setup behind me. So I'm kind of quarantining in this office outside for my 14 days.
So you are quarantining. You are literally quarantining.
Yes. I have not been inside my parents' house.
Wow.
So it's strange, I think, coming from New York, because now New York is starting to get things under control a little bit.
Right.
California is starting to explode. So, but I was ready to, I hadn't seen my family in a while, and it was a good time for me to be able to spend the summer out here. And so I've seen them outside in the backyard, but that's to the extent.
Oh, strange.
Yeah.
Oh, weird. It's like they're punishing you. It's like you've got what is it when they take away your television or something?
Yeah, that's weirdly, yeah. It's kind of
all right. But you're a grown woman. They're not punishing you. And but you grew up in Southern California, did you not?
Yeah, I grew up in Oceanside.
I have no idea where that is.
It's just northern San Diego. Nobody knows where it is.
Okay. Well, good.
So my parents, they moved a little bit further south, so I'm not where I grew up.
Okay.
But they've lived here for, I don't know, at least 5 or 6 years.
So, okay, if I'm reading the very top of your shirt, that is your alma mater, is it?
Yeah,
yes.
It is.
Okay.
Embarrassingly, yeah.
That's all right. You went there. Why not? I have a friend who went there. He loved it. You strike me. I could be wrong, but if I had to bet money, I would say you were an A student as a young person. Is that correct?
I was, yeah.
You reek of it. That's okay. Okay. But A students often have a lot of options open to them. A lot of things, a lot of people. I've talked to a lot of writers who were lawyers, and it was like, what do I do with this mind of mine? They go to law, and then they become writers. So I would imagine there were a number of things you could have done. Was writing always sort of the thing, or did you discover that later on?
Well, my dad's actually a lawyer, hence the weird legal books behind me. So that's what they wanted me to do. They wanted me to go to law school, and I thought that's what I was going to do when I got to Stanford. I took classes on sort of pre-law classes, and I thought that would be the track that I would do. But I always wanted to be a writer, kind of secretly. And then once I got to Stanford, I was able to actually find mentors and people who kind of encouraged me to follow my heart in that way and to pursue writing.
Talk to me about the secret writer, the one who, because I guess were your parents both kind of achiever types? Was your mom that way too?
Yeah, they were both first generation college students.
Right. So that was a big deal to them.
Yeah.
Right. And they're like, our kids. Okay. But writer, it's not, it doesn't have that security to it that other careers do. And so did you share your love of writing with your parents, or did you just it's just something I could do to get A's in English kind of thing?
I don't know if I shared it with them, but they knew that I was writing. They knew I was always up in my room writing. And I think they always at the time told me, go to law school, get a real job, and you can continue doing that on the side. It'll be your hobby. And you don't have to give it up, but you need to, they were afraid that I would become a starving artist in the way that parents are afraid of their kids who want to be writers.
That's right. I was a starving artist, and my son said, I'm going to be a middle manager, so I never turned out to do. So he had it in reverse. All right, but you go off to Stanford, competitive place. Were you okay with that? Could you jive with that?
It was stressful, I think. Most of my friends were engineers, and they were pre-med, and they were going to do these things that felt very prestigious and secure. And I was just sitting in my dorm room working on a novel that nobody ever read or knew what I was doing.
Right.
I think it can be a strange place, I think, to be an artist, although there is a great English program there, and there are great writers that come out of Stanford.
Yep.
particularly the time in which I was going there, which was like Silicon Valley. Everybody has an app idea, and then you're working on
Right.
a novel, which is like the opposite of an app in like every meaningful way. So it was a little strange.
I think the novel is the opposite of an app could be a good bumper sticker at a writer's conference if you wanted it. All right, so you're sitting there, you're undergrad, and you're working on a novel. I'm assuming that novel did not see the light of day, those first efforts, or did it?
No, that novel eventually became The Mothers.
That did? Oh,
It did.
I'm so jealous. Okay, I'm jealous only of the speed. You know, you got it. So you're working on it, but did it change like dramatically from your first inception to what eventually got published?
Yeah, it changed a lot. I mean, the who the protagonist was going to be. So, in The Mothers, the protagonist Nadia Turner was originally kind of this background character, so she became like the whole engine for the story.
Interesting.
She was originally kind of this background character at the church who had this big secret, and then at the end, like you learn the secret. But
Right.
the secret ended up becoming the engine for the story.
Did you? I have not read The Mothers, so full disclosure to our viewers. But did you? Because sometimes the early writers will sort of make the book about themselves, like overtly. You know, it's a very common thing. Was she like you or not like you? Would you say? I mean, did you think she was more based on you or not, and then she just came forward? How did that work, or was that not even an issue?
Oh, kind of both, I think. She, I always said that she wasn't like me, and then as time went by and I started to think about it more, I realized we did have a lot in common. I think she grows up in Oceanside, which is where I grew up. Goes to Michigan, which is where I eventually went to school.
Right.
And I think beyond that, there's a restlessness to her and an ambition to her that I think I do have.
Right. Right.
And kind of a guardedness, which I think I also carry with me. So I fought it for a long time and said that we were nothing alike, but I think that, we do share some traits, perhaps that I unwillingly or sort of unwittingly wrote as I was working on the book.
I always think all fiction is memoir and all memoir is fiction to some degree. And I write memoir-y type stuff. And one thing I've had to learn to do, interestingly, is to not see the guy on the page as me, that named Bill, that he is got my name, but he's still a character and I'm me. Like this guy here is me and he's something else. So there's always kind of an overlap there, I think.
Right, yeah.
All right. So you're writing, you go to Stanford, and then you go to Michigan to get your MFA. And not to get too much up, but I'm always interested in the relationship between young writers and their parents, because that's such a thing. Because the thing about parents is they just want their kid to be okay, whatever that broadly means, right? And that usually means not starving. Although they wouldn't let you starve, but they want you to do it on your own.
Right.
And so when you said, I'm going to Michigan, and I'm sure you were getting praise for your writing probably in college. I assume there were some people saying she's good at this, but did they say, go for it? Or did they go, well, that's what you got to do?
Yeah. Well, this was during the recession. I think that helped.
Perfect.
Because, there weren't a lot of great opportunities or sort of great job options for an English major anyway then.
Right.
So I think the recession helped. And then it also helped that it was a funded program. So I remember when I told my dad, I got into Michigan, he was kind of like, oh, okay, that's good. And then I was like, and it's fully funded. And that was
when you got a full ride?
It was a full ride. Yeah. Ooh. So that was when he really perked up. Yeah. So I don't know that I would have done an MFA otherwise. I don't think I would have been willing to take on all the student debt. And I was really fortunate that I got into a program that didn't force me to kind of make that choice.
And so The Mothers is your thesis, I assume. Mm-hmm. Ends up being your thesis.
Yeah.
And did you have a good person? Did you like the person? I usually get one person who kind of is your sort of mentor, editor type person. Yeah. Did you like I may not have heard of them, but did you like that? Well, you don't want to say, do you? Maybe if you did, but was that a good relationship? Was it helpful?
Yeah, so we had like a thesis workshop where we all took a class with one person. My thesis workshop leader was Eileen Pollock. And then we had our second reader, who was someone that you selected. So for me, it was Sugi Ganeshanathan. And she was great. She really took me under her wing as soon as I got to Michigan, because I was one of the younger people. I came straight from undergrad.
Right.
And I remember her just telling me at one point, like, look, this is your freshman year of life, like this is going to be challenging for you. You're 22, and this was the first time I had ever really been anywhere and kind of had to, and then most of the people in the program are people in their 30s, and there are people who are married and have kids, and I very much felt like a child.
Right.
And she had kind of done the same thing. So she was,
And not to harp, but writing is it can be such a grown-up kind of thing, like life experience and
yeah,
wisdom and all this kind of stuff. It could be very intimidating. A
yeah,
lot of the people you meet at the writers' conferences or at these things are going to be middle-aged people,
yeah,
probably. It's unusual to have that much success under 30. Not
yeah.
completely rare, but it's unusual. So
Mhm.
that's a tough position to be in. Like, why do I think I have anything to say? I'm only
Yeah.
22. But clearly that did not stand in your way.
Well, I mean, I had professors at Stanford who were just like, don't go straight to your MFA. You need to live first.
Right.
And I understand why people say that for all the reasons that you just said. I definitely felt I was fortunate, I think, in my year that there were a few other people around my age. So I was probably the youngest, but there were some more people who were under 25.
Right.
So I was grateful for that. But it is something that I definitely felt insecure about. I remember
Sure.
there was a guy in my cohort who had like worked in a prison library, and like people who
Right.
lived and done interesting things, and I
But you
just
know what?
read.
You're always living. I don't care. Like living is living is living. You know Ken Robinson? He's a great, like, I interviewed Ken Robinson. He was talking about, he's like, I'm tired of this, like the academic's not real life. He said,
Yeah.
everyone's dealing with real life. I don't care where you are. And so you're always dealing about real life. And you were probably writing about being a younger person,
Mhm.
that's what it is. So you're always living. It's real life.
That's
But it's
true.
good you could translate it. So, okay. So was it hard to get The Mothers published?
I mean, no, I was really fortunate. I remember we sent the book out. I was actually at AWP. This was in Minneapolis, I think.
Okay.
I was at AWP the day my agent sent it out, and she was like, "We'll see what happens." And the next week, we had made our decision on who we were going to go with. So I was
Oh,
fortunate. There was a lot of interest in the book, and it was
wow.
it was a very fortunately smooth experience.
What was that? So how was that for you? Were you kind of floating, or was it like, yeah, this makes sense? Like I'm like,
No, no.
no.
No, it wasn't that. I mean, it was so strange. I remember I drove with a bunch of friends to Minneapolis for AWP. We were on the way back, and she emailed me. We got our first like emailed response from an editor who was really excited about the book. And I'll never forget the feeling of seeing like, okay, because at that point you don't know if anybody is going to say yes to you. So
No.
the first person who's excited and who emailed us and said that she was moved reading it. I'll never forget sitting in like a back of a minivan with all my friends reading that email.
Wow. It's amazing, isn't it? Because it's such a beautiful thing because you write it in the privacy of your mind, and yeah, you work on all these people, but you have no idea what's going to happen when another person reads it. And like, it feels like your whole life depends on what other people think of your work. It's not the truth. It's not
Yeah.
the truth, but it can feel that way, can it? Like
Yeah.
like this whole dream is all in the hands of these faceless people in New York or wherever, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And so but how nice to see that there's a like-minded soul, at least one, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And so, okay. And so there was a whole bunch of people got interested, and you picked your publisher
Mhm.
and you picked your editor, I assume, also to some degree.
Mhm.
Was that part of the decision?
No, she was. So Sarah was the person who made the offer on behalf of Riverhead.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, she was. I was taking phone calls all that week with people, and I had a friend visiting. Actually, we went to the Motown Museum in Detroit. And I just remember again standing outside of the Motown Museum when Sarah called me and wanted to talk to me about the book, and just having that experience of being with like my best friend from college who just happened to be in town the day that we sold the book.
Oh, how nice.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. Okay. All right. So, how did you like working with the publisher? Did you enjoy that experience?
Yeah, I think Riverhead's a great publisher. Sarah, we've worked together for 2 books now. And she's just a really smart, but also very tough editor. And that's
Yeah.
something that I always wanted. I wanted someone who's going to push me.
And she pushed
And
you.
she pushes me. Yeah. Even when I'm kind of tired and I want to quit, she keeps pushing me. So I'm grateful for that.
All right. And so describe for our viewers, a lot of them are writers who some of them publish, some of them want to publish. Describe what it means to get pushed by an editor. What does that mean in a way that is useful?
Yeah. I mean, I think particularly for The Vanishing Half, I had been working on that book for 7 or 8 years before Sarah ever saw it. So it was a little
Right.
bit more kind of settled. I had made choices at that point. Vanishing Half was very early when she became involved. So it was an experience for me of learning how to be edited a little bit more directly. And in the case of that book, a lot of it was just, I remember, Sarah sending me, the first few chapters and being like, this is better, but,
This is
and
the
so,
Vanishing Half. This
yeah,
is the
this is for the
Vanishing Half.
Vanishing Half. So, I mean, I felt like we must have rewritten the first, section of the book, dozens of times. I just remember
Wow.
her telling me like there was a lot of confusion about the timeline and where we were in time and why are characters doing what they're doing and all those
Right.
really important questions that you need to be asked.
Yep.
But there were times in which I definitely got very just burnt out of working on the same part of the book over and over again. But I was so grateful that even when I was burnt out, she was just kind of like, take a break and then come back to it later and keep working on it.
Yeah, it's true. The role of the editor, I've learned because I'm an editor and I'm a writer, and so I've gotten it from both ends. Is questions are so important. They're almost more useful. Like, why is this? Why is this? Why is this? Because it helped. Because really, when you think about writing, aren't a lot of what we're doing when we write is asking ourselves questions and answering. Why is this? What if? On and on and on. And the editor, their questions are the ones we didn't think to ask. Maybe.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I think so, yeah. And just needing somebody outside of your brain, like somebody
Yeah.
outside of you.
They weren't in there with you.
Exactly. They don't know the answers to the things that you've been thinking about, and they're going to ask you what a reader would be thinking.
Right. Right. Okay. Well, and by the way, so The Mothers does great, right? I mean, does it get to #1 on the New York Times list, or am I?
No, it didn't get to #1, but we were on the New York Times list a couple weeks, so we're very
Well,
excited about how the
if
book.
you're a debut literary writer,
Yes.
you're, hallelujah, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. And then there's the sophomore thing. Like, it's
Yeah.
great. People are excited. She's a new voice, blah, blah, blah. But
Yeah.
now you gotta, what have you done for me lately kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so did you feel a little pressure on you to sort of match what you did before? Or was it just like, I want to keep writing and I don't care?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely felt pressure. I think it was, I worked on The Mothers again when I was alone in my dorm room. So
Right.
It wasn't that feeling again. It wasn't
Nope.
that way that felt very freeing. Nobody
Sure.
knew what I was working. My friends didn't even know what I was writing.
No.
So going from that to having
You'll never have that again.
exactly.
Ever. That was the one
Exactly.
that you'll begin to cherish that the older you get.
Yeah, I think so. And having your editor and your agent, and,
Yeah.
and not to mention readers who are kind of asking, "What are you working on?" So it felt like a very different experience.
Yeah.
But I had to just kind of try my best to try to tune it out and push past it.
I interviewed Amy Tan, who wrote, Joy Luck Club, tons of stuff, and she talked about that too, which is, everybody wants that attention, everybody wants the money, everybody wants all that stuff, but you have to block it up. You can't write. And Andre Dubus talked about the same thing. He said, he'd been on Oprah and had all that kind of attention. He's like, the lights are on you now, and that's not easy too. Failure is hard, but so are the lights sometimes.
Yeah.
So, but it sounds like you did okay. It sounds like you were able to find when you said this is it to your editor finally, or when you and your editor said this is it, were you happy with it, or were you just like, I don't even know what I've done here?
I think some both. I think I remember when I started getting galleys and I was sending them to my friends. And I had a really good friend who was telling me how much she loved the structure of the book. And I thanked her, but I was like, when I look at the book, I still see all of the effort that it took for me to try to figure out the structure.
Right.
I don't know if I ever got to that feeling of just like, yes, this is complete. I think there's always a part of me where the brain is kind of churning. You're thinking about all the work that you put into it and what you would have done differently. I don't know if I can ever kind of
see that. I have a theory. Tell me what you think. I have a theory, because I also wrote tons of essays, and I was doing like one or a day for a while, right? Is that I think within us, there's always the itch of the next thing that is lit while we're working on this thing. Like, this thing reminds us of the next thing, and that feeling of that lack of satisfaction is maybe just us recognizing something else we want to do that we aren't writing yet. What do you think?
I think that's true. Yeah, I think that's true for me. I've been fortunate with each project. Like when I was finishing up The Mothers, I was thinking about The Vanishing Half and finishing up The Vanishing Half, and then thinking of this next project I'm working on. So I feel like I'm fortunate. I've never sat down having finished something and had to stare just at an empty page with no idea. So I'm
Right.
very lucky for that.
Not yet. Okay, that hasn't happened yet. And do they? And is your publisher like, okay? Usually they don't do this with literary writers, but the more the but they're like, okay, we're going to need this book in 2021. Go, go, go.
No, nobody has done that. I had some
Okay.
conversations. I was talking to my editor about this next project like last fall. So we've talked about it for a while. She knows what I'm working on, and she's
Okay.
excited about it. But no, there's no timeline. Thank God.
So the reviews have been great. My question to you is, do you read them? Do you look at them?
I read some, like I had to read like the New York Times. Like I had to read some of those really big ones.
Sure.
But I try not to. I think it's generally not great to know all the good things or all the bad things that people are saying about you. So
Yeah.
I try to not read them too much.
Yeah.
But the big ones, sometimes I can't really help.
Yeah. It's tough, man. You
Mhm.
live by the sword, you die by the sword. It's like
Yeah.
if you're going to let the good ones lift your spirits, how can you
Yeah,
not say that the bad ones have to take them down, right?
exactly.
Yeah. All right, but you're working on the next one. And so how, when did the Vanishing Half come out? When was it published?
June 2nd.
Okay. So obviously you, like a lot of friends I know, you've had to do the virtual book tour of some kind. But with the mothers, they actually sent you around somewhere, I assume. I don't know how broad it was, but so how's that been going? You like the is it okay? The sort of
Yeah.
virtual book clubs and appearances and that sort of thing?
Yeah, it's better than I thought it would be. I thought it would be very strange just talking at your computer all day.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think the good things about it, it's more accessible, so you don't have to live in New York or Chicago or San Francisco or wherever to actually see these events.
Yeah.
And it's nice to have. I've had people that I've met throughout my life checking in various events and kind of popping up, so that's been really nice. Um, but I definitely do miss going to bookstores and actually meeting readers and signing books and seeing
Sure.
all your friends that live in various cities. Like I miss all of that for sure.
Yeah.
But I think in spite of that, I was really impressed by how the book world has been able to rally and
Yeah.
find other ways in spite of all of these complications of this time.
It looked a little dodgy, didn't it? For a little bit. It's like, how are they going to do this?
It did. I was really worried as it became more, as we kind of eased into quarantine and it became more increasingly apparent that because I remember at the time we kind of thought, oh, we don't know how long the lockdown's going to
Right.
last.
But you were in New York, right?
I was, yeah. So yeah, it became pretty early on apparent that, that there was not going to be any type of book tour. So I was really worried at first. I didn't know if people were going to be wanting to read books. I didn't know if the bookstores were going to be able to stay afloat. I didn't
Right.
know if anybody was going, I truly did not know what the experience would be like. So in spite of all of that, I'm so grateful that people have found this book and my publisher has gotten word out about this book and
Yeah.
that people are still so excited about books.
Don't you think? I think that there's going to be some good. I mean, there's going to be a lot of good that I think that's going to come of this disease. I mean, not the death and the suffering, obviously, not so much. But I mean, I think we're learning a lot, and I think the publishing world is learning something about possibilities beyond that they hadn't imagined until now. That maybe other industries were. We're kind of an old-fashioned industry in a lot of ways. It's an old-fashioned technology. It's been around since Gutenberg or whatever, right? But I think that maybe we're expanding the possibilities of what a conference, like you're going to be doing a virtual keynote for us in September, and I'll be doing that in another place too. So there's like, this is happening, and maybe we'll start thinking differently than when your next book comes out and probably this isn't happening. Maybe it'll improve things.
Yeah.
What do you think? Are you hopeful for that?
I hope so. I think, at the very least, like even being able just to record, like if we're meeting in bookstores and they're recorded so people who can't make it can watch it later, like things like that, I think would be nice to see if we end up kind of a hybrid model of in-person and also online.
Yeah.
Because that's been, I think, I remember some places I was sent for the tour last time. Like I remember going to Tulsa and the people there were just like so excited because they're like, we don't get a lot of authors sent to Tulsa.
Right. Right.
And and it was like one of the biggest crowds I've ever had in Tulsa, Oklahoma, because people were really excited. There's a sense, I think, sometimes within the industry of, oh yeah, you have to send people to New York, you send them to LA, you send them to all these like kind of cities that seem like these big,
Right.
areas, but there are other parts of the country and other parts of the world too where people are excited about books. So I
That's
hope that
right.
that's something that lasts.
It also doesn't take a lot of people to make a nice book crowd. I mean,
That's true.
if you get 50 people,
Yeah, that's a packed room.
that
Yeah.
is a packed room. I know. The first time I had a book event, I had a packed room, and my son was like, he was expecting like a rock concert. He was
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, no, you've got to temper these expectations. All right. All right. Well, listen, uh, you're a charming person. I'm so glad that things have gone swimmingly for you so far. Uh, I'm looking forward to your next book. And I'm looking forward to hearing your keynote in September. But I'm not through with you yet. What I would like you to do is finish this sentence for me.
Okay.
If writing, all the writing you've done, has taught you anything, it's taught you what?
I would say to be patient with myself, to
Oh, yeah.
forgive myself, as I was saying, of the sort of arduous process of these drafts. I think that's what I always tell people who are kind of starting off at writing. I think it's so easy to get frustrated because the writing is bad for way longer than it's ever good. And that's if you ever get that feeling that it's good, which some of us like me never quite get that feeling. So, I think learning to be patient and stick through it in those moments, I think that's really the difference, I think.